So start recording. Once again, I just want to say thank you for everybody joining in our presentation on sleep hygiene, maximizing your sleep. Today's discussion points, a few of today's discussion points are going to be what exactly is sleep hygiene. We're going to talk about sleep quantity and sleep quality, the difference between those two, creating your sleep schedule, strategies for better sleep, tools you can use for better sleep, some sleep supplements, and then lastly, we will talk about tracking our sleep. Sleep hygiene defined, all right, just plain and simple, habits for a good nighttime sleep quality and full daytime alertness. Why is this important? Considering both the objective and subjective portions of sleep hygiene, it's important for our health, all right? We're spending 1/3 of our lives sleeping, so the quality of our sleep is truly important to our overall health throughout the day. By now, I think just about everybody on here has seen this infographic. I chose it for that reason, and it goes without saying, we've seen this, that athletes who sleep greater than 8 hours are less likely to be injured. All right, if sleeping less than 8 hours a night, you're 1.7 times at greater risk of being injured playing our sport. The reason why I picked this, though, is because that focuses solely on sleep quantity. All right, I think that's only half the equation. The other half of the equation is our sleep quality. Easily defined, right? Quantity versus quality. It's recommended 8 hours of sleep is the average, 7 to 9 for our sleep quantity. And then our sleep quality is defined through being able to fall asleep in 30 minutes or less, sleeping soundly through the night with no more than one wake up in between. And then when you do wake up, easily falling back to sleep within 20 minutes. We're going to go over a lot of ideas and strategies in the following slides. It's important that we don't look at the sum of the presentation and think, I must do it all, it's too much, so I won't do any. Instead, I want to think about taking that first step. As Lao Tzu said in the Tao Te Ching, a journey of 1,000 miles starts under one's foot. We've all heard a variation of this to some degree, right? It's that first step on the 1,000-mile journey. So as we go through this presentation today, I want you to start thinking about the things that stick out to you the most and what you can do right away. What's that one step that you can take in order to implement some of these changes to have a better quality of life through better sleep quality and better sleep quantity. Firstly, I want to talk about creating a sleep schedule. All right, there's two parts to our sleep schedule. The first is going to be the waking portion, and then we'll get into the falling asleep part. All right. In order to create a quality sleep schedule, it's important that we wake up at the same time each and every day. This includes Saturdays and Sundays. All right, this is setting your alarm for the same time if you have to, and getting up at that time. When your alarm goes off, get up at the first time that it goes off. Don't hit snooze, not even once. All right, the last thing we want to do is fall back into a sleep and then have that alarm wake us back up again, and that's going to disturb our sleep cycles. We want to try to get out into the sunlight without sunglasses and with as much exposed skin as possible, as early as possible in the morning. So it's always a good idea to get up, go for a walk if you can, get out into sunlight. This is going to be important to trigger temperature changes and also some of our hormonal regulation that we'll talk about in a second here. This is one that can be difficult. This is one of the reasons why in the wintertime we have seasonal depression, right? We don't get outside as much. We have people who live in parts of the world where it's dark the majority of the day, right? Winter here, it's dark a lot longer during the day. So it's important that we get outside and we get as much sunlight as possible. The other thing I want to touch on is caffeine consumption. You know, coffee is very popular with athletes. I know that. Energy drinks, pre-workouts, things like that you're taking throughout the day, but we need to start considering when and why we are taking those. All right, so we'll get a little bit more into this, but in terms of caffeine consumption, it's important that we do not consume any caffeine prior to 6 a.m. Right, and that's a generalized time as to when the sun starts to rise. So everything's following the sunrise right now. The other part of that is the fact that we want to make sure we've been up for at least an hour before we consume any caffeine. Right, so if I wake up at 6 a.m., I don't want to have my coffee right away. I want to make sure I let my cortisol levels rise naturally. I get out into sunlight. So maybe my morning routine looks like I wake up, I go outside, I get my sunlight, I come back in the house, sit down, eat my breakfast, and I have my coffee then. All right, and then lastly, we want to limit our naps to 20 minutes or less. That keeps us from falling into a deeper sleep and again, disturbing our sleep cycles. The other half, the flip side of that sleep schedule, is getting ready to go to sleep. So we want to go to sleep at the same time each and every night, including on Saturdays and Sundays. Now, I know for a lot of people, this is like a big thing. Well, you know, that's what the weekends are for. That's what a Friday or a Saturday night are for. Well, that Sunday feeling, when you're kind of dreading, you're just laying around the house and you're dreading to have to go to school or go to work on Monday, that's most likely caused by being off your sleep schedule, by not going to sleep on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, waking up at the same time on those days. Okay, so if you want to help yourself out, go to sleep at the same time every night, wake up at the same time every morning. All right, we want to now eliminate caffeine consumption within 6 hours of our planned sleep time. All right, caffeine is going to stay in the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. It's going to stay within our bloodstream for 6 hours. If we really want to get tough and we really want to ensure that we're going to have quality sleep, we can extend that to 12 hours before going to sleep. All right, I know that can be tough for some people, but anywhere within that 6 to 12 hour range is going to help you out a ton. We also want to consider what time we're eating and what time we are drinking close to our bedtime. We don't want to consume large meals close to bedtime. We don't want to continuously drink water close to bedtime. We want to be hydrated, but we want to make sure that we're not going to be waking up in the middle of the night having to go to the bathroom, disturbing our sleep cycles. So let's consider what times we eat, what times we're drinking, and then also you need to consider the effects of drugs and alcohol as they might affect your sleep schedule, your sleep cycle as well. All right. And then at night, as we start to go to sleep, we want to limit our exposure to light to help regulate our hormones and signal sleep. When we're talking about creating a sleep schedule, we're really talking about regulating the physical, mental, and behavioral changes that follow a daily cycle. This cycle is called the circadian rhythm and responds primarily to light and dark. All right, so our waking and our sleeping. Disturbances in these cycles can influence hormone release, eating habits, digestion, body temperature, and other important daily functions. The two major hormones at play here are cortisol and melatonin. Cortisol is your natural alarm system. It is responsible for waking you up, and it's also responsible for our fight, flight, and freeze response. This is your daytime hormone, and unfortunately, most of us at this point, our society is getting too much of it. Due to our environment, we all live in a city for at least part of the year, right? 9 months out of the year, we all live in the city. It's loud. We're packed in there. It's bright. You can't see the stars at night. So these are all things that contribute to that level of stress and our level of cortisol. But a big thing that we can change and a big thing that affects us is definitely the use of our devices. The other hormone, which helps to regulate sleep, is melatonin. It plays an important role in the regulation of sleep, and the production of melatonin is suppressed by light. So melatonin is produced when it's dark. It's released by your brain. It signals that you should be getting ready to fall asleep or that you are sleeping, and it reaches its peak in the middle of the night. So studies have shown that from about 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., your melatonin levels are at their highest, and they start to drop off after that as you start to raise and get ready to wake up. All right. You might hear a lot about blue light being thrown around. And why is blue light so bad? Well, blue light is the only wavelength that can reach your retina directly. Blue light directly penetrates all the way to your retina, and it signals to your body not to produce melatonin and that you should be awake, right? It also causes some issues with your eyes, which is it's a different topic. But the blue light that's produced by fluorescent and LED light sources can also have an effect on our sleep pattern. As I said, the viewing of our screen devices, this all results in less REM sleep, which is when we're sleeping, it's our dream cycle, okay? And it's theorized that dreams are actually our body's way of being able to process the information which we collected throughout the day. So you're downloading the important information which your brain feels like it needs to keep, and you are getting rid of all the information that's not important and doesn't need to be stored. So any effect on our sleep cycle is going to be an effect on our dreams. The end result here is you wake up feeling sleepier. So I'm sure we've all had those days where we've gotten 8 hours of shut-eye, but for some reason we're just not able to shake that feeling that we're still tired, all right? And that's probably something that has to do with messing around with our melatonin and then therefore our sleep cycle. Moving on here. So some strategies to help us get to sleep and stay asleep here. Number one would be to use your bed for sleeping only, right? Avoid doing work in your bed, avoid playing video games, avoid watching TV and reading. Don't lay in the bed with the light on. Just when you lay in bed, it's time to go to sleep. Make sure the lights are off, okay? You wanna sleep in a completely dark space. Again, light here is the enemy of sleep. So we wanna use blackout curtains if necessary, or find other ways to make it completely dark in our room. And yes, that includes covering the power switches and the buttons on all of our devices. So you have a TV in your room, it's got that red little light that tells you that it's off. You gotta cover that. Flip your phone screen upside down. Any other device that's plugged in that has a light, put electrical tape over those buttons, all right? A strategy to help you fall asleep is to maybe listen to some white noise. A lot of people like to sleep with a fan on, have some soft music playing. I personally listen to a podcast or some of the sleep music that's on YouTube. And when everybody here gets the link for this, they'll be able to click on my favorite YouTube Delta Wave music right there. And as we've already touched on, stop scrolling, put the phone down, all right? Turn off the Netflix. The sooner the better, but we're gonna talk about at least an hour prior to your actual scheduled sleep time. All right, so an hour prior. If you wanna go to sleep at 10 o'clock, make sure you're in a dark room by 9 o'clock. Some sleep tools that we can talk about here are the blue light blocking glasses, right? These are relatively cheap. I guess they do come in varying degrees of effectiveness, but you can get a pair for less than $20. Okay, these have been super helpful for me, and I know I've noticed some other athletes wearing them on our meetings during quarantine when we're spending so much time in front of our computer screen. Really easy to add the blue light blocking glasses. Wear them when you're watching TV, wear them when you're on your iPad, and it'll block out some of that blue light. You can also purchase and apply blue light blocking screen protectors for your devices. So those are real easy to throw on your iPad or on your iPhone or whatever phone you have. Okay, one of my favorites and a hidden secret is this F.Lux. You can download this on your computer right now. It actually changes the display colors on your computer as the daylight changes. So you sync it with your zip code and it'll mimic the sunshine outside. So when it's dark, your screen is a lot darker, warmer colors. And when it's noon, it'll be at its brightest with a lot more blue in those colors. You can do the same thing on your phone. I know the iPhone has the night shift mode. All right, I leave my night shift mode on 24/7. I would encourage you to do the same as well, or at least set it up so that it mimics what's going on outside. All right, if you have trouble blocking out light from your room, I always recommend wearing a sleep mask. They're relatively inexpensive to buy as well. Make sure you sleep with a sleep mask on. Make it as black as possible. Living in Philadelphia, we don't really have control of what's going on outside of our apartments. You live on the first floor. You've got neighbors down the hall that are a little bit noisy. It never hurts to try out a pair of earplugs either. All right, so those are some tools we can use. We're going to dig a little bit deeper here into sleep supplements. So these are things that you can take in order to help you fall asleep or get better quality sleep. Now, first and foremost, I would encourage before taking any sort of supplement that we try and get these vitamins and minerals from our own diet. So the foods that we're eating, all right? Depending on the quality of food that you're able to obtain, it might have varying degrees of these vitamins and minerals. I think we should try and get it from our food first, and then we can talk about adding these into our diet via supplementation. However, these things are going to be super important to regulating our sleep cycle, and I think they can go a long way to helping you out, whether you get it from your food or whether you supplement with it. We all know how important hydration is, so to beat that dead horse, we need to make sure that we are hydrating efficiently. The water regulates a lot of the processes in our bodies, if not all of them. All right, so dehydration can lead to disruptive snoring. It dries out your throat and your nasal passages. It can leave you snoring with a sore throat, or we've all, at one time or another, woken up with a Charlie horse, cramps in our legs from dehydration, all right? Just to backtrack there for a second, we don't want to chug a bunch of water before we go to bed, right? We want to make sure we hydrate throughout the day so that as we get ready to go to bed, we're not going to wake up in the middle of the night and need to go to the bathroom more than once. And it's important that you drink water when you wake up first thing in the morning too. You're going to have some water loss, some hydration loss just through breathing in the middle of the night. Okay, so you are going to wake up and you are going to be dehydrated. So you need to start that hydration process right away. Next one's going to be zinc. Zinc helps to metabolize melatonin. So we talked about melatonin already, and can produce a sedative effect just like magnesium. Okay, magnesium also can produce a sedative effect. It maintains levels of the GABA neurotransmitter that promotes sleep as well as relaxation. So zinc and magnesium, you often see them combined. If you go to a supplement store, you also see them combined as ZMA, a ZMA supplement, but those are just zinc and magnesium combined together. The third mineral that can produce a sedative effect is calcium. It helps the brain use the amino acid tryptophan to manufacture the sleep-inducing hormone melatonin. So those things all revolve around the production of melatonin, and we're all familiar with tryptophan as being when you eat your turkey dinner, everyone wants to take a nap on Thanksgiving, all right? There's no science to back that up. That may or may not be true, right? But we link tryptophan with sleep, and we're now linking tryptophan with melatonin, so we can see that calcium is also important. The last one there is of course melatonin. Your body produces melatonin naturally, so it's not suggested that we supplement with melatonin very frequently or on a steady basis. So we don't want to go a week straight supplementing with melatonin, although it is available over the counter at any drugstore or at any supplement shop. All right, so we want to use this sparingly, maybe 1 or 2 nights when we're really having a tough time going to sleep. And it's important to note that research shows that supplementing with melatonin may help you fall asleep faster, but it doesn't necessarily help you stay asleep or have a more restful sleep. So obviously, our body's natural melatonin is going to be a lot more effective in doing so. The next thing I want to talk about is tracking our sleep. So, we might have some general idea, hey, I sleep really well on certain nights, or I don't sleep well at all. Well, why is that? Well, unless we really take a deeper look and really analyze what we're doing in our day-to-day lives, we're probably not going to be able to figure that out on our own. So the first thing I would recommend is keeping a sleep journal. And you can do this in the morning, right when you wake up. You can just take 5 minutes to analyze how your night's sleep was and how you feel. I'm not going to go too much into detail on that one. There's plenty of resources online. You can Google that. The Sleep Foundation has a good one with a lot of great questions on there. So you can take a look at that. Again, you will get this PowerPoint presentation. You'll be able to click on that link right there, and you can get a good example of what a sleep journal looks like. But the reason why we want to keep a sleep journal is, let's say I do consume caffeine within 6 hours of trying to go to sleep, right? I can then analyze, well, when I drank caffeine at 2 p.m., this is how long I slept and this is how I felt. Or when I ate a late dinner, or when I ate fast food for dinner, this is how I slept. I wasn't able to fall asleep. I only slept for 5 hours. I don't feel rested. Those are all things you want to document on a daily basis. Take note of those things and then start to see the patterns in your sleep. The other thing you can do is to use the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. Now, this is sort of for healthcare professionals. It was developed for nurses in nursing homes for older adults, but there's a lot of validity for it for you too. And it's just a simple way of, on a monthly basis, reflecting back and evaluating how each week was for you as you were sleeping. Now, obviously, the downfall of that is if you're only doing it once per month, you've got to think back, well, 4 weeks ago, how was my sleep 4 weeks ago compared to the way my sleep is currently? But again, it's just another tool to have in your toolbox, and I would recommend looking into that. You'll be able to click on that link when you get it here. And I see the questions rolling in, and thank you for those, and we'll get to those in just a second. The last thing I kind of want to talk about here is the tracking of your sleep. All right. So tracking your sleep could be helpful. There's a lot of different things out there. We'll go over some apps, some wearable, some non-wearable technology. But what are we looking for when we're talking about tracking our sleep, right? Tracking your sleep is not necessarily going to help you sleep better. Obviously, it has no direct effect on your sleep, but it can also help to identify some of those patterns that we're looking for with our sleep journal. So what do we want to look for in something that tracks our sleep for us? If we're going to go out, we're going to purchase something, what are some of the things we're going to look for that's going to make the biggest bang for our buck? I would say the number one on that is our heart rate variability. And the heart rate variability is the difference between heartbeats, and it's measured in milliseconds. Generally, we want to see a higher HRV, and that's going to reflect your ability to dip in the recovery and the activity zones of your heart rate very quickly. All right, so you can very quickly get your heart rate up and then settle it back down, and you automatically go into recovery, which shows you're more heart healthy, and it can reflect while you're sleeping, your ability to recover while you sleep, and how well you're rested. Next one is resting heart rate. All right. Latency is how quickly you fall asleep. So we're looking for pretty quick sleep time. We said within 30 minutes would be a great idea, or reflect that we're sleeping pretty well if we fall asleep within 30 minutes of laying down. Our efficiency is going to be our time in bed versus the time that we're actually falling asleep. So we want our efficiency to be high. We want that number to be low. So generally, when we lay down in bed, we don't want to spend any excess time in bed. We want to make sure we fall asleep within 30 minutes. If we wake up in the middle of the night, we're back to sleep in 20 minutes. When our alarm goes off in the morning, we're up and out of bed. Also going to look at things that measure your time in each of your sleep stages. And then also respiratory rate can be helpful. Now this is something that just got added to my Whoop that I wear. Respiratory rate, they're saying respiratory rate when you sleep can be indicative of an illness. So if you've got broad changes in respiratory rate over an acute period of time, then it may be indicative to some type of illness and lack of recovery for you there. So that's something that you can look for on there. Some wearables, we've heard of most of these, and they all have, varying prices, various degrees of validity. Again, these things are just tools, so I wouldn't get overly caught up on which ones you need to have, but it's going to help you identify your trends that you've got going on with your sleep patterns. There's the Aura, which is a ring, Whoop, which is a wearable around the wrist, as well as the Fitbit, the Garmin, and of course, you guys are familiar with the Apple Watch. Some non-wearable technologies you have on your phone, there's apps where you can lay your phone on the mattress, and it'll attempt to measure sleep. There's Beauty Rest, there's MFit QS, there's Within Sleep, and the Bedit 3. These are all ones that are actually attached to your mattress in attempts to measure movement throughout the night. The aspects those things do not have when compared to a wearable is a lot of that heart rate variability, your resting heart rate. It's not really measuring those biometrics. All right, so last things here, where do we begin on those? I said, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with that first step, right? So as we like to say in Philly, trust the process. So I just want you guys to take that first step. Choose one of these things that you think you can go after, get after it, and then see how that affects your sleep schedule and your sleep cycle, your quality and your quantity. If I had to choose, I would say the two most important things to do is to actually set that sleep schedule. And what you're going to end up doing is giving yourself windows for each of those activities. So you can map it out, your sleep schedule. You're going to go to bed at this time. You're going to wake up at this time every single day, 7 days a week, right? I can have my coffee after 6 a.m. or after an hour being up, and I want to cut off caffeine intake 6 to 12 hours, whichever you choose, before I try and go to sleep, right? And then we don't want to eat too close to bed. So let's give ourselves a 2-hour window before we go to sleep to process our food and digest. So that's going to give you a feeding window of where you can eat between this hour and that hour. And I think it's helpful if you choose either all three of those or just the sleep, if that's the most important to you, and set that sleep schedule, map everything out into scheduled windows, and that'll really set you on your way of being able to fine tune your sleep schedule. The other thing that I think would be the most important would be to keep your sleep journal, because again, it's hard for us to think back and remember what we ate throughout the day, how much caffeine we consumed, what time we woke up, all those things that have an effect on our circadian rhythm and our sleep schedule. If we write those things down, then we can actively see what types of trends and patterns are being developed through our daily habits. So that's the 1, 2, 3, that's the long and the short of it. Trust the process. Let's take that first step. Set yourself up with a sleep schedule, and then start journaling the things that affect your sleep. Okay. Here are the resources available. Of course, there's plenty of stuff out there. You can Google, look up Sleep Foundation was a big one for us. And I just wanted to say thank you to all you student athletes that are in attendance, right? Obviously the Department of Athletics, that's why we're all here. The sport coaches, sports medicine staff, and of course the strength and conditioning staff. So I will stop recording.